everybody, my name is Ashley and you are watching Three Boys, Two Girls, and today I wanted to share with you what I have been reading in the month of March. And I'm doing it a little bit differently than I have in the past. This year I'm actually doing it as a collab, Book of the Month collab with Ingrid from Mommy and Mia Homeschool Chronicles, as well as April from the Simple Rugged Path. And so there is a playlist too, which I will link below, and you can check out all the playlist of all of the ladies that are involved in this and what everybody's reading. So check it out. Okay, so the first book that I read in the month of March was Gitchy Girl by Phil and Sandy Hammond, and it is actually a true story. It happened actually right here in eastern South Dakota, and it is about a girl who went out to Gitchy Manitow State Park with her friends, with four of her friends, and they were just kind of having a bonfire, and then in the middle of the night these three guys came and just murdered the four boys, and then she survived. They actually kind of drove her around the Sioux Falls area and then actually dropped her back off at home, and it was just kind of the crazy story of why she lived and just how she was treated afterwards. So the writers actually, and as well as just the girl who survived, are actually going to be at our local library here a couple weeks, I think. So I'm definitely going to check that out as well. So if you like true crime and you're maybe even from the Midwest, this is kind of a good story about, you know, just the murders that rocked the heartland. So the next book I read in March was Inkheart, and I actually started this like in January, so I finished it actually the beginning of March. I saw the movie Inkheart with Brendan Fraser in it, and I liked Brendan Fraser, so I did enjoy the movie, but the book just took me a little while to get through. And Cornelia Funk is actually really good, a good author, so I don't know why it took me so long, but it did. So what it is about a man who has this special capability, and whenever he reads a book out loud, he is able to actually read characters out of that book into present day life. So he can read, if there's like villains, then he can read the villains and they actually come to life as the characters they are in the book. But there's a catch. For every person he reads out of a book, somebody around him is read into that book and then basically goes and lives in that world. And so he accidentally read his wife into a book called Inkheart, and then at the same time read out some villains. And so this is the story of him and his daughter try to go and basically save the mom and get rid of the villains and that kind of stuff. So it's a good story. It just took me a long time to get through it. So the next book that I read was Winter Song by S.J. Jones. This is not a book that I would have picked up if I would have been in the bookstore and saw this book. It probably would not have been one that I gravitated to. I don't read a lot of fantasy, and so I wouldn't have gotten this, you know, just on my own. But I participated in or ordered a subscription box from Emily Cook over at Homeschooling. She does Build Your Library, but she also has now a subscription box for a family reading crate. So I signed up for the family reading crate for March, and didn't realize that it was like goblins and magic and stuff, which, like I said, isn't really my cup of tea, but I did it anyway. And I got the book and I was like, well, I might as well read the book since I purchased it, and I gotta tell you, I loved it. I was very surprised to think that I loved it actually, but it is about this kind of an alternate, not really an alternate universe. It's kind of like a world where goblins and other mythical creatures kind of ran free. There was a lot of warring between the mythical creatures and the humans, so there was a lot of bloodshed on both sides. And so they struck up this covenant where the goblins and mythical creatures would go underground and every year they would have to take a goblin bride, the Goblin King would have to take a goblin bride, or it would be winter forever and spring wouldn't come. And so then he usually would like hypnotize them and kind of take them by magic. And so he actually captured the main character's sister, and so this girl then has to go on this quest to rescue her sister from the Goblin King, but ends up kind of falling in love with the Goblin King herself, and her quest to become the Goblin Queen and kind of what happens. And so it was actually a really good book. As a matter of fact, I actually got the sequel to this, Shadow Song, which is downstairs, and I am definitely reading it in the month of April. The next book is Language of Flowers. This is by Vanessa Deffenbaugh, and this was actually recommended to me by a friend, and it was actually a really good read. It is about a girl who was given up by her mother as an infant, so she never knew her mother, and immediately placed in foster care. And then she kind of bounces around from foster home to foster home, and then she finally lands in a foster home with a woman who they really like each other, they hit it off, and actually this woman is gonna adopt her. But she just can't believe that it's true, that she could love her like that. And so she kind of maybe acts out a little bit and kind of makes a mistake that kind of gets out of control, and then is taken away from that foster family and then put back into the system. And then it's just kind of her life surviving after growing up basically in the system. And it's just a tale of like love, and it's never too late to love somebody. It's never too late to find family. And it was just a really good book about just relationships and that kind of stuff. Next up is A Wild Fright in Deadwood by Anne Charles. And if you have been following along with any of my reading wrap-ups, you know that I have been reading this series for a while. I love Anne Charles. Her writing is hilarious. It's quick and witty, and I just enjoy reading her writing style. This series is about a single mom. She's got like 2 10-year-old twins or something like that. And she moves back to Deadwood, South Dakota to kind of start over as a realtor and try to make her life there. She basically has run-ins with like these demon-esque creatures, and so it kind of has that little bit of otherworldly feel to it as well. But it's hilarious. It's got some steamy parts in it as well. I kind of think it's almost like comparable to the Stephanie Plum novels by Janet Ivanovich. That's kind of what it reminds me of. But I enjoy her writing. It's a pretty quick read for me. I get through it pretty fast, even though like the writing is pretty small, and it's kind of a long book, but they're funny. They're easy to get through. Next up, I actually have 2 books by James Patterson and Maxine Petro. I think that's how you say it, but this is the Women's Murder Club series. I've read a lot of these a long time ago, and then I just haven't caught up, so I needed to catch up with 15 and 16, and then I believe 17 comes out in April, so I will try to get that on hold from the library. But this series is about a girl. Her name's Lindsay Boxer. She is a detective, and I think it's like San Francisco or somewhere in California out on the coast, and she basically solves all of these crimes, but she's never alone. She has the help of a couple of her friends, a reporter, a coroner, and a lawyer, and they're all women, and they kind of come together and help to solve all of these crimes together. And so I've really enjoyed these books. I love crime novels, just like kind of a whodunit, following along, trying to figure it out. And this one kind of gets a little bit personal. Her husband, she kind of finds some stuff out about him that maybe she doesn't like and stuff. So it kind of gets a little interesting that way. The last book that I read, that I finished in March, I haven't finished my last one yet, but the last book that I finished in March was Beyond the Bright Sea by Lauren Walk. And this was a recommendation for a book club that I was supposed to attend in like little town next to ours, and I just ended up not being able to attend that night, but I still got it and read it. It is about a little girl that washes up on shore on the Elizabeth Islands in 1925. And so in the Elizabeth Islands, there is one of the islands is designated for all of the leprosy victims. Basically, all the people with leprosy live there from all over the world. And basically it's to contain the disease and to not let it spread any further. But one day this infant child washes up on a shore of an island near this big leprosy island and is taken in by a gentleman who just loves her, raises her well. But as she grows up, she starts to question her background and where she's from. She's darker skinned than everybody else. She also has like a feather birthmark on her cheek, and all of these questions come up and kind of lead back to this leprosy island. The island is actually no longer used for holding the lepers. They've actually shipped them out to hospitals around the United States, but questions still remain there. And so there's still like the hospital on this island and the shacks where the people lived. And so it's just a quest to find out who you are, kind of a coming of age tale as well. And just realizing, does knowing where I come from really matter? Does it change who I am? And it was a good story. This would be great for like middle school. It was really enjoyable. So if you have been following along with me, you know that I've been trying to read 50 books in the year of 2018. And so with those 8 books that I read last month, that puts my total at only 13. I don't know how I did in March or in January and February. I didn't do very well, obviously. So in March, I kind of caught back up. And so hopefully I'll be able to keep that steam rolling. What are you guys reading? I'd love to know in the comments if you've read something really good that you want to recommend. I would love to hear it. Anyway, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.